这是霸道总裁的短剧看多了吗？
This is yet another real-life farce inspired by watching too many overbearing CEO falls in love with me idol dramas. A female college student happened to see a luxurious Maybach parked on the roadside, and in that instant her mind began to play out a plot where she was the heroine of an idol drama. She seemed to have envisioned everything already, damaging the CEO's car and then, unable to pay for it, having no choice but to offer herself, thus starting a passionate love story with a tall, rich and handsome man. So, she actually acted out this absurd plot development, decisively picking up a wooden plank and smashing it straight into the Maybach without hesitation. She believed this would successfully trigger the CEO encounter script, fantasizing that the aloof and handsome car owner would rush over and say, "Come home with me," thus starting a brand new chapter of her life. However, reality didn't follow the idol drama script. What arrived was not the overbearing CEO but the police. As she was being taken away by the officers, this so-called female lead looked utterly shocked and aggrieved, crying, stomping her feet and still muttering, "I can't afford to pay, but I can offer myself, can't I?" This isn't how the story was supposed to go. In the end, she did receive something, not sweet romantic love but a formal lawsuit. One netizen commented, "The Maybach owner is rich, yes, but not mentally ill."
一个月3000可以追你吗？
不可以，不行，一个月3000太少了，连我一个包都买不了。
那多少可以追你？
起码6万吧。
那你一个月可以挣多少钱
2000。
那你要求还那么高？
对呀。那男人挣钱不就是给女人花的吗？
说得好，说得太好了。
我发现很多想找有钱人的女生，真的她们的脑回路有点可爱啊。
I really more and more feel that some girls these days, when they say they want to find a rich man, their logic is honestly so naive that it's almost kind of cute. Yesterday, a girl born in 1994 came to our matchmaking agency. She said that right now she works as an office clerk and wanted to find a rich DG big brother as a boyfriend, and even asked me if I could help introduce one. She also added specifically, looks don't matter, and she's okay with someone from out of town. Her hometown is in a relatively remote city, and in terms of appearance, to be honest, I'd give her, at most, a 6 out of 10. I thought to myself, if you were an incredibly beautiful woman with sky-high attractiveness, then sure, wanting to date a rich guy might be understandable. But the issue is, with her current conditions, she's actually thinking she can get a rich man through an introduction? I'm just really confused. Why do so many women always fantasize that rich man equals tall, handsome, and elite? It's like she thinks she already lowered her standards by not demanding good looks, and by saying she's okay with someone from another city. But sweetheart, if you lived in a tier 1 city like Beijing, Shanghai, or Guangzhou, and you said you could accept someone from out of town, then maybe that has some practical meaning. But you're a girl from a remote city, and yet you say, I can accept someone from another city. Does that count as a lowered standard? What's more, your looks are just average. Why would those truly rich men cross mountains and rivers just to choose you, a plain and unremarkable girl? Do you know why so many girls want to marry a Gao Fu Shui, tall, rich and handsome, but only a tiny fraction actually succeed? Because opportunity never falls from the sky for no reason. When you see another girl marry a rich and successful man, it's not because luck randomly hit her on the head. It's because that girl did something right, changed something, worked hard somewhere. A real Gao Fu Shui doesn't just fall from the sky, he's attracted. But there are always some girls who are dreaming from start to finish. They fantasize that once they find a rich man, they'll be set for life, lying down to enjoy the good days. No effort, no work, just waiting for happiness to be handed down to them like charity. What's even more ridiculous is that some of them are doing absolutely nothing, lying around like salted fish, and still actually believe that some rich man with loads of money will come pull them out of the mud. If that's not daydreaming, what is? Just think about it, those rich men got to where they are by grinding hard, enduring countless bitter days. Are they really putting in all that effort just to pick a woman who has no soul, no charm, and take her home for retirement? Don't be silly. Sure, they're rich, but that doesn't mean they're blind. Remember this, every man you meet in life is actually a reflection of yourself. If you keep failing to meet decent, high-quality, capable men, then it simply means you're not yet worthy of having a man like that. Understanding this is a lot more important than dreaming.
我今年39岁了， 大龄优质剩女。
I'm already 39 years old this year, and I'm a typical high-quality leftover woman. Recently, it's been quite a while since I last went out shopping. It's not that I don't want to go out, but lately, I've been completely brainwashed by those short dramas. To be honest, the more I watch these short dramas, the more addicted I become. Almost every storyline is about a Cinderella story. The female lead comes from an ordinary or even poor background, yet she's always surrounded by two overbearing CEOs. Not only are they all rich and handsome, but they are also deeply in love with her. Watching those almost too good to be true scenes, I couldn't help but start fantasizing. If I were the female lead in those dramas, could I also have that kind of love? Actually, I've thought about it for a long time, and I think I can. Am I not a real-life Cinderella? Although I was born into an ordinary rural family in Guangdong, and our financial situation was indeed quite average, I've always considered myself to be one of those girls who are both ordinary and dazzling. I have a pure personality, good looks, and I'm also quite capable. It's just that fate hasn't yet given me the chance to meet someone who truly cherishes me. To be honest, my expectations for love aren't that high. I don't dream of having two overbearing CEOs fighting for my love like in the dramas. I just hope I can have one. Just one overbearing CEO who loves me is enough. He doesn't need to have billions in assets. As long as he has a few million yuan and can live a decent life, that's good enough. He could be the cool type. Wearing sunglasses, driving a luxury car, and just standing by the roadside would attract countless gazes. But the most important thing is, he must love me, understand me, and spoil me. The life I imagine is, he remembers my preferences every day, worries about me getting hurt, cooks delicious meals for me. The first thing he thinks of when he opens his eyes each morning is me. On my birthday, he prepares special surprises for me. On holidays, he takes me out for a walk, whether it's a trip to another city or just a stroll in the suburbs. I would feel so happy. On weekends, we hold hands and go to the park, walk along the river, feeling the breeze and chatting. That kind of feeling is just so warm when I imagine it. Actually, I've always been someone who is very easy to please. Even though I'm already 39 years old, I still have the heart of a young girl, one who forever longs to be loved and cherished. I believe happiness really isn't that complicated. It might just be someone who is willing to treat you well, a steady and thoughtful companionship. That's all.
女孩子真的是这个世界上非常可爱的生物。
Girls really are the cutest and most dream-filled beings in this world. I don't know if others feel the same, but I believe many girls are just like me. Ever since I was little, I was never into cartoons. Instead, I was obsessed with idol dramas, especially those plots where a rich, handsome, and overbearing CEO falls in love with me. Every time I see those scenes where a cold and aloof male god drives a luxury car, wears a custom-made suit, and gazes at the heroine through a floor-to-ceiling window with deep affection, I completely melt. I especially love that kind of setup. A man who appears strong and indifferent to the world, yet emotionally falls apart only because of you. He doesn't need to say much, but with just one look, one small gesture, you can feel that he sees you as his entire world. Not long ago, I came across a topic that said what girls are truly obsessed with is actually the soul of the female writers behind these rich and handsome characters, because they write exactly the kind of love we girls yearn for deep inside. I really resonated with that. In reality, men like those in idol dramas barely exist, but we just can't help imagining. If one day we could be loved that intensely by such a man, what would that feel like? For example, the romance series I've been obsessively watching lately. The male lead is not only handsome and affectionate, but unbelievably gentle too. The author said she hopes this character will inspire more boys to learn and grow, but in the end, the ones who get hooked are still us girls. We understand that kind of visual fantasy all too well. Like last year, I saw a piece of aesthetic artwork, a man's wristwatch and a woman's diamond ring quietly placed together on the same table. In that moment, what popped into my mind was, late at night he takes off his watch and I remove my ring, we lean on the sofa and watch a movie together. Or, next to a pair of large-size slippers at the door, my pair sits neatly beside them. These kinds of scenes only girls truly understand. That's the most vivid form of love we fantasize about. A girl's emotional world is so delicate, it's almost heartbreaking. We might fall for the lines of a watch on his wrist, or the profile of his face when he wears sunglasses and drives a sports car. We might lie awake at night imagining, if my dream guy were here, would he tuck in the corner of my blanket? We might be happy for an entire day just because he made a breakfast especially for me. We don't fall for expensive Valentine's Day gifts. We fall for whether you remember something we casually said on an ordinary day or a flavor we once mentioned, and then you quietly bring it to life one day. Those details, they move us more than diamonds. So you see, our fantasies may be unrealistic, but they are never cheap. What we long for is simply this: a rich, handsome, seemingly cold man, who, when no one else is around, wraps us in his arms with all his gentleness and says, "I love you." I honestly don't know how to describe it, but the romantic details we girls care about, most guys just don't get it. But every girl does.
为什么女人爱做梦？一个例子就给大家讲清楚。
Why do women always love to fantasize and daydream unrealistically? Let's try to explain this clearly through one example that is both realistic and absurd. Let's imagine, in Chongqing, there is a rich second-generation heir who drives a Ferrari. He's rich, good-looking, and changes girlfriends 10 times a year. As a result, these 10 girls who once dated him have now become the shining stars in their social circles. They proudly brag to everyone, "My ex-boyfriend drove a Ferrari." The other ordinary boys they once dated, those who might have just driven a basic commuter car, are completely forgotten, even to the point where they can't be bothered to mention them. In their eyes, only the guy with the Ferrari is worthy of being remembered as a man I once dated. But the story doesn't end there. If each of these 10 women has 5 close girlfriends, then that means 50 more women will go around saying, "My bestie is actually pretty average looking, and her family isn't rich either, yet she managed to date a guy who drives a Ferrari. So what about me? I look better than her. Why can't I?" And so, they also begin to fantasize, to expect that they too are deserving of a boyfriend who drives a Ferrari. So, with just one rich second-generation heir, one Ferrari, and 10 short relationships, the romantic expectations of 60 women in Chongqing have already been reshaped, each believing she deserves a man who drives a luxury car. What's more, this is just one city, just one heir. If we scale this logic across the entire country, can you imagine how many women would begin fantasizing?
Why are there so many leftover women in China today? It's simply because they overestimate themselves too much. Some women, in their daily lives, often come into contact with upper-class elites, and so they fall into an illusion, thinking that they themselves belong to that level too. Ordinary men are no longer even considered an option. On top of that, they've watched too many idle romance dramas and started to believe that they too can become the lucky female lead. They dream day and night of having a chance encounter with a dominant CEO who gets down on one knee and says, "I love you, marry me." And so they dream every day and long for it every night. Time flies by like a white steed glimpsed through a crack. As they watch themselves getting older and older, they ask, "Why hasn't my dominant CEO appeared yet?" They wait and wait until they finally become leftover women themselves. But that's okay. They're not afraid, because they're watching a drama series. Episode 1. The dominant CEO falls in love with the ordinary me. Episode 2. The dominant CEO falls in love with the older me. Episode 3. The dominant CEO falls in love with the divorced me. Episode 4. The dominant CEO falls in love with the me who has a kid. Episode 5. The dominant CEO falls in love with the menopausal me. Episode 6. The dominant CEO falls in love with the retired me. Episode 7. The dominant CEO falls in love with the me dancing in the public square. Episode 8. The dominant CEO falls in love with the me who has Alzheimer's. Episode 9. The dominant CEO falls in love with the me inside the urn. So, what do you think happens in episode 10? Feel free to continue the storyline in the comments. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. See you in the next one.